Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today in this session. So today in this session we are going to continue from task 1 of this project, more malloc and free. So this task here says we should write a function that concatenates two strings. In the previous project on malloc, we've already seen a task which asks us to write a function to concatenate two strings, right? But in this case, the difference between this and the one on the other project is that there is an extra parameter in this case added to the function. There is an extra parameter added to this function here, an extra argument, which is n. Okay, so what this n is going to do is this. Whatever the value of n is, it means you are only going to copy that exact number of characters from S2 and concatenate it to S1. What I'm trying to say is if n is 5 now, so you are only expected to copy 5 characters. Sorry, you are only expected to concatenate 5 characters from S2 to S1. If n is 10, you are expected to concatenate only 10 characters or only first 10 characters of S2 to where? To S1. Okay, it says return pointer shall point to a newly allocated space in memory, so we are going to need malloc, right? Which contains S1 followed by n byte of S2 and not terminated. So it means that the memory we want to allocate should contain all the content of S1 and also what n byte of what of S2. So it means that we need to find the length of S1 for us to be able to know the exact amount of space we need to pass to malloc to allocate to us, right? We already have our n, isn't it? And also we need to create an extra space for our null terminated, isn't it? So if the function fails, it should return null. If n is greater or equals to the length of S2, then use the entire string S2. So what this is saying is if n is greater than or equals to the length of S2, then concatenate everything from S2. Okay, so it means that if n is less than the length of S2, we are only expected in copying n byte from S2. Okay, if null is passed, treat it as an empty string. So let's see how to solve this problem here. So before we continue, let me quickly pass this information. For those interested in our C mentorship program, the course application for the 7th batch is currently open. So kindly go to b12learn.com.ng, which is our newly launched learning management system, and then go to courses. Under courses, you'll be able to see ALX complete C programming course. So because I'm already logged in, that's why I'm seeing continue learning here. In your own case, you will see start learning. Okay, so if I click on continue learning now, so as you can see, I have the project here. These are the first ones created: how to clear repositories, hello world, how to install Betty, all this. These are all the ALX project. As you can see here, we have them on this website. Okay, so for instance, if I want to access these more functions, more nested loops, I will just click on this, and as you can see, all the materials are here. Okay, so here as well, if I want to access functions and nested loops, all the course materials are here. So if you're really interested in taking part in this mentorship program, kindly message me using the WhatsApp link in the description of this video, and then I will share a coupon code which will give you a 30% discount on this course. Believe me, this course is very affordable. Okay, also if you have a course that you want to sell on this website, you can register as an instructor. Simply come here and then you can click on instructor registration. You can register as an instructor because I've already registered. That's why you're seeing you are not registered as an instructor. In your own case, you'll see a registration form which you need to fill. Okay, so after filling the registration form and after uploading your course, the course will be reviewed, and once everything is fine, we are going to make it available for others to have access to. Okay, so if there is any inquiry you want about being an instructor or enrolling in the C programming course, kindly message me, like I said, using the WhatsApp link in the description of this video, and I will answer your question, and also I will share the coupon code that you need to get 30% discount on our mentorship program. So thank you very much, and let's continue. So copy, so this is task 1, vi, pastes. Alright, so as you can see, I have my Betty documented, my stdio.h for the null, stdlib for malloc, main.h, my header file, which contains this prototype inside, right? Alright, so how do we first solve this problem here? The first thing we need to do is we need to find the length of S1 and S2, isn't it? So I need to say int, let me call it S1 length. This is something we've solved, okay? The question is similar. In fact, the code is almost the same. The difference is just this, and we're going to see how to deal with it. So if you've not watched the video of this concatenation on the previous project on malloc, please do, okay? Because I'm not going to explain everything from scratch in this video. Okay, so it's equals to 0. I'm initializing it to 0. So this is going to hold the length of S1 and that of S2. Sorry. So this is going to hold the length of S1. So int S2 length, initialize it to 0. This is going to hold the length of S2. So the next thing is we need a pointer to hold the return value of malloc. So I will just say car and then let me name it output. Right? So what's the next thing we need to do? It says if S1 or S2 is null, we should treat it as an empty string. So I will just say if S1 is equals to null, we are going to treat it as an empty string. So I'll just say S1, this is an empty string. So if S2 is equals to null as well, so I'm also going to treat this as an empty string. So I'll just say S2 is equals to this as well. Alright, so the next thing is to find the length of S1 and S2. For I equals to 0, so I need to declare the variable I, which I'm going to use for my looping, so I'll call it I. Right, so let me tab. Alright, so for I equals to 0, then what again? I'm trying to find the length of S1 now. So S1 index I not equals to the terminating null byte, right? Then I plus plus. Isn't it? So here I will just say S1 len plus plus. So I'm done with this. So the next is that of S2, finding the length of S2, I equals to 0, S2 index I not equals to the terminating null byte, then I plus plus. So here under the for loop I will just say S2 len plus plus. So now I have the length of S1 and that of S2 stored in these different variables. Isn't it? So the next thing I need to do now is to allocate the memory, right? So I just say output is equals to malloc, right? Sorry, I'll just say malloc size of, what am I storing inside? What does the question say? Okay, concatenate two strings, so it's going to be size of car, right? Size of car. So size of car times what? What do we need to add here? Don't forget, what we are trying to store in this newly allocated space is S1, the whole of S1, and also n byte from S2. Isn't it? N byte from S2. So I'm going to say what? S1 len, the length of S1, right? Plus what? Plus n. So this is going to allocate memory based on the length of S1 and also the value of n, which is the exact character we are going to copy from S2, right? So, but if I leave it like this, we will not have space to add our what? Null terminated. Because when you look at this, it says S1 followed by first n byte of S2 and null terminated. So we need to have, or we need to provide an extra byte for the null byte. So all I'm going to do, I will just say plus 1. So this is going to allocate an extra byte in which we are going to have our null terminated stored. So the next thing we need to see here is if output fail, right? That is if malloc fails to allocate. So the next thing we're going to see is if output is equals to null, that is if malloc fails to allocate, right? So if output is equals to null, what should we do? If it is null, I'll just say return a null. Sorry, return a null. Right? So the next thing we need to check here is if n is greater or equal to the length of S2, that is S2 len, right? Then use the entire string S2. So if n is greater than or equals to the length of S2, we have to concatenate everything from S2. So let's first set that condition. If, right, if n is greater than or equals to S2 len. So this is where we need to do some work, right? If this condition is true, then what do we need to do? So the first thing I need to do is to loop over S1 and store it inside the newly allocated memory, right? So I just say for I equals to 0, S1 index I not equals to the terminating null byte, right? Then I plus plus. I'm looping over the entire S1 character, okay? So the next thing is I'll just say output index I is equals to what? It's equals to, what am I iterating over? Okay, S1, right? So it's going to be S1 index I. I believe this is not something new. We've already done a task regarding this concatenation. So please don't see this as something strange. If you don't understand, please refer to that video. Okay? I don't want to take time again explaining something that we've already explained before. So this is going to loop over the entire S1 and it will concatenate the entire characters of S1 inside the output. here, right? So now we have the content of S1 stored in our newly allocated memory. So the next thing is to loop over S2, right? So this is going to be I equals to 0, S2 index I not equals to the terminating byte, then I plus plus. So this is also the same thing. So in this case, I'll just say output here going to be output index S1 len plus I. I've already talked about this as well when we were talking about concatenation, right? So this is just saying begin concatenating the content of S2 from the index which is equals to the len of S1 plus I. Okay, the I is added because we want it to be moving. As the iteration is incrementing, the index should be changing as well. So it's equals to what? S2 index I. We've already talked about this, please. So this is what? If n is greater than or equals to S2 len. So the next thing we need to do is we need to add our terminating byte, right? Because all these loops here will not add the terminating byte. So we need to add our terminating byte. So I just say output. So what would be my last index now? It's going to be S1 len plus I, which is equals to the terminating byte. So now I have now added the terminating byte at the last index now. So that means after the loops finish running, the last index is going to have this terminating byte. So the next case is what? Which is the else part. Else, that is if what? If n is less than S2 len. If n is less than S2 len, the for loop here is going to be the same. So I just say for I equals to 0. So S1 index I not equals to the terminating byte. Terminating byte, then I plus plus, right? So it's going to be the same thing. Output index I is equals to S1 index I, right? So now this is the this is where we need to make some changes. From this point here up to this point here is the same as that of the task on concatenation which we solved in the first project of malloc. Okay, it's the same. So this is just where we are going to make the changes. So here this else part is if what? If n is less than S2 len. So if it is less than S2 len, we are only interested in copying n byte from S2, right? So if n is 5, so we are only interested in copying 5 bytes or 5 characters, the first 5 characters from S2 to what? To S1. I'm sorry, I kept saying copy, concatenate. We are interested in concatenating first 5 bytes of S2 to where? To S1. Isn't it? So it means my loop needs to stop at n in this case. So I'll just say I equals to 0. I has to be less than n, then I plus plus. This is the only difference between this particular task on concatenation and that of the previous malloc project. Okay, this is the only difference. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is simply add it now. So I'll just say simply do the concatenation S1 len. I'll just say S1 len plus I, isn't it? Is equals to what? S2 index I. Okay, so after all this thing, we need to also add the terminating byte at the end. So output S1 len plus I, right? So I will now say it's equals to the terminating byte. So this will add a terminating byte at the end of the concatenated string. So it's either this condition will be executed or this condition will be executed. So any one of which is executed here will have the terminating byte added at the end of the concatenated string. Okay, so outside here I just need to return my output. So return output. That's all. All right, so let's run Betty on this. So Betty, this is one what? Okay. Okay, no description for parameter member n. So did I not? Okay, yeah. So let me just document it here. Terminate from S2. I think this should be enough. All right, so let's run Betty again. All right, so Betty is fine. So let's create the test file. cvi1 main.c, right? All right, so paste. All right, so let's compile the program now. So copy this and then paste. Okay, it says n greater than or equals to S1 len All right, so here our n is an unsigned int. When you look at the prototype, our n is an unsigned int, and my I, in which I'm comparing it with, is just an integer. So the data types are different. So I need to make my I an unsigned int as well. Also, I'm comparing an unsigned int with what? With an s2 len is what? Is an integer, isn't it? So I also need to make this what? An unsigned int. So all I'm going to do is, let me just open it. What's the file name? Yeah, so here I will just make this unsigned ints, all of them. So unsigned int, this as well, unsigned int, and also this as well. So this is also going to be an unsigned int. So I think this is okay. So let's compile. Yeah, so as you can see, it has been compiled now. So let's run the compile file. All right, so as you can see, I got best school. Okay, best school. So this is what was passed as the first argument, best. So we got best because we are looping over best entirely. You got best. So, and then here the third parameter here is 6. So it means we are only interested in copying 6 characters from school here, and count 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So that's why it's going to stop only at where? At L here. So that's why we have only best school printed. Okay, so don't forget, add, commit, and push to a GitHub, and then you can run your checks. So we're going to stop here. In the next video, we are going to continue from task 1 of this project. So thank you very much till we meet in our next session.